divided into two different periods, before and after the flood, and that both periods were regarded by the peoples of the region as absolutely factual and real. We saw in Chapter 1 how the Mesopotamian traditions not only preserved memories of antediluvian cities, but also of an antediluvian civilizing hero called Owanis, and the brotherhood of 7 sages, the 7 Apkallu, who are said to have supported his civilizing mission. As the reader will recall, these sages are often depicted in the surviving art of the region as bearded men holding a peculiar kind of bag or bucket, but sometimes they are also shown as therianthropes, part bird and part human in form. As I dug deeper, going back and carefully rereading the accounts of the Babylonian priest Berosos that I had first touched upon when I was researching Fingerprints of the Gods, I was reminded that Owanis and the Apkallu sages were also sometimes depicted in a different therianthropic form, in this case part fish, part human. Each of them was paired as a counselor to an antediluvian king, and they were renowned for their wisdom in affairs of state and for their skills as architects, builders, and engineers. Berosos compiled his history from the temple archives of Babylon, reputed to have contained public records that had been preserved for over 150,000 years. He has passed on to us a description of Owanis as a monster, or a creature. However, what Berosos has to say is surely more suggestive of a man wearing some sort of fish costume, in short, some sort of disguise. The monster, Berosos tells us, had the whole body of a fish, but underneath, and attached to the head of the fish, there was another head, human, and joined to the tail of the fish, feet like those of a man, and it had a human voice. At the end of the day, this monster, Owanis, went back to the sea and spent the night. It was amphibious, able to live both on land and in the sea. Later, other monsters similar to Owanis appeared. Bearing in mind that the curious containers carried by Owanis and the Apkallu sages are also depicted on one of the megalithic pillars at Göbekli Tepe, and as we saw in Chapter 1 as far afield as ancient Mexico as well, what are we to make of all this? The mystery deepens when we follow the Mesopotamian traditions further. In summary, Owanis and the brotherhood of Apkallu sages are depicted as tutoring mankind for many thousands of years. It is during this long passage of time that the 5 antediluvian cities arise, the centers of a great civilization, and that kingship is lowered from heaven. Prior to the first appearance of Owanis, Berosos says, the people of Mesopotamia lived in a lawless manner, like the beasts of the field. Berosos wrote his history sometime between 290 and 278 BC, but only fragments of it have come down to us, preserved as quotations and summaries in the works of other writers, such as Syncellus and Eusebius. However, scholars recognize that what has been transmitted to us in this way does accurately reflect much more ancient Mesopotamian traditions, inscribed on cuneiform tablets going back to the very earliest times. For example, the name Owanis, which has perhaps been distorted by the writers who passed it on to us, turns out to be derived from Uan Adapa in cuneiform, often abbreviated simply to Adapa or to Uana, with the Adapa element originally being a title meaning, appropriately for a sage, wise.